Hello. Well, we're having a really powerful time. We've got solstice, midwinter. We've also got the sun going into Aquarius, and we've got two huge planets, Jupiter and Saturn. Jupiter is the one behind me, co-joining, getting together. And these two planets, it is said, were in the same position at the birth of Christ 2,000 years ago, causing the sight of a very bright star. So we're going to have a repeat performance. Seems significant, doesn't it? So today, I've called this video 30 Christmases. In fact, I'm only going to talk about two because I had 30 Christmases almost on my own when I left my husband. I knew it was going to be tricky, so I was sort of hunting around for someone to spend Christmas with. Not a good idea. I found all sorts of lame dugs and down and outs and goodness knows what else, but I'm going to just talk about two if I've got time. I might not have time, so I'll talk about the first one. It's a bit like a Scrooge story, really. The first one's rather sad. I'd not long left my husband. I went to live in it was a flat in the middle of a Victorian house with male students. Noisy, you could imagine this what students are like, and I was on the ground floor. So above me was all the noise. It was cold, it was dark, there was no heat, no hot water. And I struggled for 3 years actually, but the first Christmas was going to be tricky. Because my daughter was with my husband. So I decided I've been to the Hillfield, the Friary, the Franciscan Friary. Remember I told you about that? And I got chatting to the gardener. This is my experience of not a good idea. Anyway, we got on really well. And I said, would you like to come for Christmas? Oh, those famous last words. And so we jumped at the chance, obviously. And me in my innocence, I asked people things to come to stay with me or whatever. They often, the men especially, get the wrong idea. Anyway, David came. He turned up smelling the worst for wear of a drink, carrying a sack of logs. I did have an open fireplace, and it wasn't a good start because I felt he was a little bit inebriated. So we got through the first evening. I was a little bit apprehensive, to be honest, so I left him in the front room on the settee, and I'd locked the door. I threw a duvet at him and locked the door. The next morning my ex-husband and daughter came, and they brought a few little presents, but of course David was still with me, so he sat in the other room, the kitchen, just for the time that my daughter and husband were with me. And we had the Christmas day. I think we got through Christmas night as well, fairly successfully, but he wasn't a very well man, and I think he got the wrong idea. He didn't do anything, but I had the feeling he was hoping for a bit of nookie. Anyway, next morning I found he'd gone. He'd left. And it was in the middle of the city. I don't know how he got home, but he got drunk his way through a whole bottle of Pernod, a bottle of sherry, and something else in my sideboard. I don't know what he was thinking of. So he thought he was onto a good thing, so off he went. So that was my first Christmas on my own, and saying never to redo that again. But I survived it, and it was company, I suppose. But as usual, I pay a very high price for company. I'm learning slowly. It's best to be on my own than to attract these peculiar people that don't appreciate me. The second Christmas, the second one I'm going to talk about, was to say I had 30 of them, more or less on my own. I think I spent 3 with my daughter and 2 or 3 with other weird people I can't remember. But this second one I want to talk about was quite magical because I was still reasonably friends with my daughter, and well, we had 2 nice Christmases actually, but I will talk about the one we went to Vienna because that's an unusual one, and we were both quite ill. She'd getting over the flu, and I had this thing called CFS, whatever it is. But anyway, we got the flight. I can't remember a lot about how we got the flight, where we got it from, but we got the flight over to Vienna, and on the way over there, the pilot was playing Christmas carols. It was so beautiful actually. It was a magical time, and I think it did it on my air miles, so we got a cheap holiday really. So but the cold, we got off the plane out into the cold, and I cannot describe the cold. There was a Siberian wind blowing across the open places, and everybody was wrapped up warmly. Sensible people, the women were dressed in fur coats, ankle length fur coats. And of course my daughter and I were just dressed in our usual anoraks and whatever. We weren't really very warm, but it was dreadfully, dreadfully, dreadfully cold. But anyway, we did manage to get to the Christmas markets, which are quite beautiful. You can't compare them to anywhere in the world, really. Magical, magical place. Everything was beautifully lit up, and there were always unusual things, baubles and gingerbread men and garlic poppadoms hanging from the stalls. Absolutely beautiful, it really was. And I got found out because I was taking somebody's sweets off a stall thinking they were free. And they actually belonged to somebody. So we only had a weekend really, but the market was magical. We actually heard the Viennese boys choir singing, which again was a beautiful moment. But we were so cold, we just couldn't get warmed up anywhere. I think we took a pony trip round the streets near where Mozart's home was, and we looked at Mozart's home. And then my daughter disappeared. She wanted to go and see the house of Freud, and she came back, apparently she'd found a boyfriend. So I spent the rest of the time on my own, more or less, but we did manage to get to the Viennese woods. I've always wanted to go to the Viennese woods and see where Beethoven lived. And this is quite a peculiar thing because we had to get a tram. Now that the German stations, the Viennese stations, are spotless, absolutely spotless. Everything's on time, so efficient. So we got this tram to what I thought was the edge of the Viennese woods, but there were no woods. I mean, it was just suburbia, really. But we got off the tram, and my daughter tried to converse in German to ask somebody where the woods were. And we were both so ill, we could hardly move, hardly walk, and it was just, although it was very a beautiful time, we weren't really well enough to enjoy it. Anyway, we found some kind of woods, and we asked somebody the way in German, and there was a few trees, I think, and there was a sort of guest house, a pub, and we got to the front door, and the man came out waving his arms, schlossen, schlossen. They were closed. They don't celebrate Christmas as such. They have Advent, so it was before Christmas, but everything was closed up, and we were so cold and so hungry, and we just sat on the ground and cried. We didn't know what to do. We were a bit lost, didn't know how to get back. We were both hungry, so we just had to, prayer. We just struggled on until we came to the edge of this little patch of trees, and we could see a light in the distance down the lane. My daughter she'd had it. She just, I can't go any further, Mum. I'm going to have to sit here. And I struggled down the hill to this guest house. It was a pub, and it was open for lunch. So I kind of waved her on, and then we got to this place and fell in, absolutely frozen. And we had a really nice lunch, actually. It was one of the nicest lunches I've had. It was just about thawed out. And then we had to go back home. I forget how we got home because I had to find a station and everything, but we did manage it. And as we came out, I could see in the distance this little house. It was pink, a little pink house set in the woods, and the edge of the woods. And it was the house that Beethoven used to not live in, but occupy when he was writing his music, I guess. And it was a little church next to it, a dear little Lutheran church, absolutely beautiful, magical, candles and a little nativity scene, all the beautiful things. And I felt that was a magical time for me because it was Beethoven's area and the little church, Lutheran church. So we just looked at that, and then we were a little bit tipsy actually because you've been drinking that glühwein. I expect you know what glühwein is. It's wine which is heavily spiced but quite alcoholic. So we sort of fell down the hill. I'm just going to look at the time, dear ones. 9 minutes. So we fell down the hill to the Autobahn, I suppose. No, it wasn't. I don't know what the train station's called. We found the tram back to the hotel, where we were absolutely, we just got warmed up again. I don't think we ever really felt warm. It was so cold. But it was an interesting time. Especially my daughter found a boyfriend. Look at I took her for companionship, but off she went. And I was left to deal with myself. And it was actually okay because but there was nobody about really because it was so cold that everybody stayed indoors, or they were wearing these ankle-length fur coats. So that seemed like a very brief video to me, but the flat was the most interesting, and I have got a lot more, but whether I should fit it all in before Christmas, I don't think so. They are interesting stories, but not very mystical, some of them. I think the Viennese one was the nicest one, how we both struggled with our German, to try and make ourselves heard. Anyway, dear ones, don't forget, when you send a Christmas card, don't write Xmas, write Christmas, because if you put a cross over the Christ, naughty, naughty. Christ to Mass. It is the Mass for Christ. It's not an Xmas. So let's hope we get through it. In the UK, we're absolutely chaotic, as you can imagine. I don't know, obviously not everyone's watches is from the UK, but it's been a nightmare. It's just getting more and more difficult as time's going on. I'm very fortunate. I've got a little bungalow, and it's cosy, double glazed, it's warm, it's quiet, I'm near some trees, and I'm just going to chill with Netflix. I'm not bothering. I've got a little tree, which is not from the Viennese woods, and just make the most of it. I've had 30, well, I suppose I've had 25 on my own. I do wonder, every year I try and manifest at Christmas. I do affirmations, I do everything, but I still end up on my own. And really, at this moment, I can't think of anybody I'd want to share it with. Now that's sad, isn't it? Well, I think it's all the people I've known in my journey have been so, well, it's reflected me, I suppose. I don't know, re-meeting karmic friends, and so much goes into it, doesn't it? But anyway, here I am on my own again. And I've not had a card from my daughter yet. Whether I will or not, I don't know. So I should get by. I've got a friend coming to have a look at my computer to try and change the camera and do a bit of updating on my videos. And that's it really. So I hope you have a good experience. We've got the solstice, we've got this conjunction, we've got so much going on that I think it is time for the earth, the world, to wake up. And when I see all those thousands of people at Paddington Station in London trying to flee London, well, words fail me, because they're not standing 2 metres apart, that's for sure. So off they go. Whether they'll get home again, I don't know. Anyway, dear ones, all the best for now, and keep your spirits up. That's all you can do, really. Just keep conscious. Keep conscious. Be as Jesus said, be in the world, but not of it. And you can do the everyday things and see the everyday things, but somewhere in your mind you have to rise above it. Okay, my beloveds, take care of yourselves. Put my glasses on. God bless for now. Bye-bye.